Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tuesday night. It is Tuesday night music chat night. It is Tuesday night with Brian Red Night. It is Tuesday night, the best night of the week.
Yes.
Brian, we're back. We were in Las Vegas. You were like traveling the world. I mean, if there was a place that wanted to talk DJ, you were there last week.
He was there last week, yeah.
Oh man, what a crazy. Well, now we're getting feedback. Sorry, gang. I've got to fix that.
Fix it.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tuesday night. It is Tuesday night music chat night. It is Tuesday night with Brian Red Night. It is Tuesday night.
Your speakers down.
There we go. Now it's coming through the system there, so we'll get that off. So yeah, you get to hear that intro twice, ladies.
And we're back.
And we're back. We're doing it live. That'll get cut out of the edit, that's for sure. So tonight, Brian, it's disco night.
Yes, it is.
When we talked and we went through the 70s, you were talking about a lot of different disco and funk and different things like that. Mm-hmm. And it, as I kind of shared, my way of looking at a lot of the music from that era, because of where I perform, was basically if those songs don't make my dance floor go or make money, right, it wasn't something I used. Now we were talking a little bit earlier today, and you were talking that as a youngster, a lot of the music that wouldn't make our dance floor move today was things though that you experienced a lot over the radio and such in your area.
Oh yeah, and I lived in LA or Los Angeles area when I was a kid. I heard a lot of that. But even when I lived in Indiana as a really young guy, I heard a lot of it. But today I think, disco to me is a very different thing than what disco is to my audiences at mobile gigs. And today my list reflects that. I'm trying to give you guys a list that's solid for your dance floors. I have a list that's kind of for everyone, for any party. If you have a party and they ask, hey, can you play some disco? This is kind of where I would go on that general kind of request. And then I have a list that you could use almost as a playlist if you had a disco theme party. These are familiar tracks. They're not deep tracks. I do have some deep tracks and some favorites I'll share with you too, but I'm trying to give you guys stuff that's usable today.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things I was definitely interested in, because from my standpoint, I'm really those 8 to 10 disco songs that are commonly played are really my go-to. And that works in most situations, because I'm probably in the course of a typical night, I'm going to play, I'll play Staying Alive, maybe YMCA,
sure,
just a few, because my method of using it is to move from one genre to another, and it's kind of my segue as I'm moving from an older songs to newer songs. But that isn't the way it is across the country. A lot of places are very heavy into that disco feel with their music.
They are, and depending on where you live in the world, really depends on what you're going to play. Some of the songs that are on my B list will actually be on maybe the UK's A list, because those are songs that are just super popular there, and they always have been. And I'll tell some stories about that later, stuff that I've discovered in my travels and just working with different people. It really depends on where you're from. This is stuff that reflects kind of, I think, it's a general list. It's a U.S. list. It's fine for the Midwest. I think it'd be fine for the West Coast. I think it'd be fine for the East Coast. I think in the U.S., this doesn't generally work well. I probably work well in Canada, too, for the most part, with a few variations. In England, it could be very different. But this is stuff. I mean, the stuff I'm going to share with you, like I said, this A-list stuff, this you can play it at any gig stuff, is going to be familiar. And not necessarily disco, in my opinion, but stuff that people will classify as disco or relate to as 70s dance music, which is really what they want when they ask for disco.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Well, let's jump into a couple of tracks right away, and then we'll be kind of bouncing around, because I've got a lot of questions as we're going through. Because again, that wasn't my background wasn't in this. I can answer more Beatles questions and oldies than I can.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know my mom was into it. When I was a kid, my mom was really into it. It was really hot, and I liked it. I really did. I mean, my brothers and sisters told me how much it sucked, but I liked it.
Yeah.
And then, as I got older, I was able to obtain records and things that I enjoyed and would listen to kind of on the down low when no one was paying attention. I've always loved disco. I've always just really enjoyed it. It's fun music, and it never really went away in the U.S. or anywhere else. It's just the names changed and things like that. And I will say also, before I even get into this list, when people talk about disco at mobile gigs, they're not particularly talking about the 70s. a lot of it is, but some of it even goes into the 80s a bit. People will talk about tracks like Shannon's Let the Music Play, which is actually like a freestyle Latin hip hop track, or they'll talk about Prince's Erotic City, or they'll talk about, I don't know, Sheila E's The Glamorous Life. And those are just kind of 80s dance tracks, but they technically, that would work well in a disco theme night too. I'm just not getting into that whole thing. I'm not going into the 80s with it very little, maybe 80, 81, but I'm not going into the 80s on this disco stuff. I'm trying to stay primarily in the 70s with it.
Okay.
So we'll kick it off with one that is played a lot. It's a Last Dance song that people play a lot, and that's Donna Summer's Last Dance. You can totally play that at almost any gig or to any mixed crowd. This isn't going to be something obscure. They've heard it before and they know it. And again, reflects this first list here.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you do that one?
That one I have.
You?
Excuse me. I have done that on a few occasions, using it at the last song of the night, but yet it wasn't the last song of the night because I was wanting to set up the next song and I wanted to play something that in their mind fit as this must be the last song. So that we, again, getting back to that surprise factor, that we play that and everyone's like, oh, that must have been the last song. And then all of a sudden you come back with something really killer that was on the bride's like top 5 songs she wanted to have at her wedding, and the crowd just goes crazy. So
it's kind of the encore effect on that one. And I've done that before too. I've said, thank you very much, good night, knowing damn well I'm going to play 2 more songs, and they got to like scream for me to come back on. It's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Those are fun nights, and sometimes they go until like 3 a.m. if they keep going.
Here's another one for you. And tell me if you've played this or not. Give Up the Funk by Parliament.
Oh, yeah. I have. That would have been back more I played that in the bar scene. I don't know if I've ever played that at a wedding.
I have before. I don't play a lot. It's not something that comes out all the time, but people do ask for it, and they know it. But I think people know it because of movies and things that have come out in the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. It's not so much that they were listening to that in 1975. And stuff like that happens. You get video games that come up with songs. Oh, like the Grand Theft Auto is a big one. It comes up with all these 80s tracks that people know because they hear it on the video game Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of, I think some of these, I actually had a DJ share a playlist today from Grand Theft Auto songs that he had mashed together. And it was actually kind of cool, except he also dropped profanity in through the whole thing because that's kind of what the video game's all about. But it was kind of a cool mix of music that he used. Arturo, I believe, who is out in LA, he's mentioning, and he was actually, when we were talking about the regionalness of the disco music that in that Los Angeles area, that was just so big. And I think as we were talking to some of our friends, especially some of our friends from American DJ who are in that vicinity, that they still have a strong influence. There's a disco influence into their music sets.
I think the LA scene it is, but I think LA is more freestyle. Okay, it's more the Latin hip hop stuff. It's more the 80s than the 70s.
Okay.
From my observations, they're doing a lot of freestyle out there. It's still very big. I've been to a few parties out there, especially the Latino parties, and they're doing what we used to call Latin hip hop. Latin hip hop is something very different now. It's actually rap music now, but back in the day, it was Debbie Deb. It was Company B. It was Stevie B. It was that kind of stuff, which we now call freestyle because of the artist freestylers. It's more that. And they may call that disco, and disco songs may make their way into the sets, but 80s is huge. And you can, I guess, blame Richard Blade for a lot of that. He's a DJ out there, and he's kind of brought that flavor, a lot of that flavor in, as well as the new wave and stuff from England. K-Rock, all that stuff.
Interesting. And then we've met Richard Blade at a couple of DJ events.
Rich is a nice guy.
Yeah.
I didn't see him this year now, but I usually do. He's a good dude.
Okay, right. What do you have next on your list?
And I'm just going to ask if you play. I'm going to go through this list.
Yeah, no, please do, because for those of you watching, as Brian and I were talking about this, I didn't feel completely out of place with this, but for me to be making a lot of recommendations on songs is kind of, wouldn't be disingenuous because it isn't something I do heavily. I just use the ones that we all use, and that's why it's like we'll rely on Brian's expertise in this area more. And as soon as we get back to the Beatles and playing the old stuff,
I'm in. John is the man.
I'm back, man. Or we get into that country 90s thing, and Brian will be like...
I'll just be lost.
He'll be like,
but you know what? I probably know more than I think I do.
I think you would. As I was going through this past weekend, I had an event which was a country event. I haven't played a predominantly country event. So I was going back and looking at some of the older charts just to make sure I wasn't missing anything big as I was going through. And it's like, gosh, there was a lot of great music between country music between like 93 and about 97.
Mhm.
And as you're going through, I'm sure we'd sit there, he'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, I remember that one. 'Cause
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, but I
yeah.
don't realize that I know it.
Exactly. And then we
If
go
it
through
was
and it's like,
compiled, and if it's compiled in a list for me, I go, oh, yeah, I do know these songs.
exactly. Yeah. No, and then one of them was like, I used to play Down at the Twist and Shout for Mary Chapin Carpenter. We used to play that all the time at events. And it's like, that felt completely off my radar. And I felt,
Right.
it's like, wow. Anyway, next song. We're digressing.
Do you play Brick House by the Commodores at your events?
I do. That is actually one. And I guess I kind of viewed that more as more of a funk type song.
Absolutely is. And,
Okay.
and I don't even argue that with you. But when our customers ask for disco, we're not talking about music geeks usually at a wedding reception or most mobile events. We're talking about layman's. I mean, they don't know. They just want dance music from the 70s when they say disco for
Sure.
the most part. So you can definitely work Brick House into the set. Now, having said that, in the days of disco, when there were actually clubs, discotheques or discotheque, whatever you want to call it, that was being played when it was hot. That was a track that got play.
Mm-hmm.
As well as the next one on the list, Play That Funky Music by Wild Cherry. Another one, perfect example. Not really disco, but it's a bit like house music in that regard. There is house music as a genre where people think about Marshall Jefferson and things like that. But then there's also the house music that Frankie Knuckles was playing in the warehouse at Chicago. That was not a house music at all. It's like new wave,
Mm-hmm.
or it's disco, or it's something just danceable. And I think disco is kind of like that too to our audience. It's all perspective on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, that's definitely a big thing because there's been times we've had people ask for oldies. Used to be oldies were the perspective of 50s and 60s, and now oldies are 80s.
Yeah, Poison, Motley Crue.
Yeah, I could give some really old stuff like some Aerosmith.
Right.
Shut up and go home.
Yeah.
Go home, you youngsters.
Okay.
Listen, Brick House.
Yeah.
You mentioned in a set. Where would you put Brick House in a set? And I know I'm kind of putting you on a spot with this one
No, it's okay. You can start a set with Brick House.
because that's how I
think it's
typically
a go-getter.
have done with that because of that beginning. With the drum and such, I would maybe be coming out of a like a 70s type of a slow song or something in that vicinity,
Come out
and
of the
starting
slow
a
song
set.
into it. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. But now, could a person? What I was thinking is, can you move that into? Is there a song that you can come out of that really would just kind of go into it really quite well?
I've actually, because of the drum at the beginning and the sloppy drum at the end of Love Shack, I've actually made that transition right there. Just off the top of my head, I've done it because the drum's sloppy.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. It brings you back.
Uh-huh.
So I've done that, and then I've done that break at the end of Brick House. I've mixed in Play That Funky Music, White Boy, the bass line, it's just a solo bass line that you can play it over that doom, 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 and you can make that mix in well. And I've mixed in Staying Alive out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Staying Alive, you can do all kinds of stuff. That's like, I don't know, somewhere between 107 and 109 BPM. You can go into a lot of like early 2000s hip hop stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can have all kinds of fun with this. But, it's not always about mixing. It's about programming. It's about putting the songs in the right order. You don't necessarily have to mix them. Just do some clever fades. If you can mix them, great. But if you can't, don't worry about it. Just make sure that, you're moving your dance and you're playing the right songs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Next up is a song that popped on everybody's radar from the movie Pulp Fiction. That's Jungle Boogie by Kool and the Gang. Once again, not really disco, more of an R&B funk tune, but it works in the disco sets.
Sure.
If you look at any of those disco compilations that came out in the pure disco, all that stuff that came out in the 90s, songs like Brick House, Play That Funky Music, and Jungle Boogie are on those compilations.
Very much so. Yeah, I was looking at some of those today.
Yeah, so people can, definitely, oh yeah, okay, that's disco, when it's not really disco, but it works in those sets. And a couple very different Kool and the Gang songs while we're on the topic.
Yeah.
Ladies Night by Kool and the Gang.
Yep, I've done that one.
Yeah, you've done that one. And how about Get Down on It?
Get down on it.
That one's coming back. If it hasn't hit your town yet, it will. For some reason, that song's coming back. And you can replace things like Celebration with Get Down on it, and they really enjoy
Ooh,
it. I've noticed it the last couple of years.
interesting. That one I'll have to make a note because I haven't played that one at a. I know the song, of course, but I haven't played it at a wedding, and to get it to say that it reaches that level would be really kind of cool to try it in there. I'll make a note on that.
Give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
How about Car Wash by Rolls Royce? Have you played that one?
Oh yes, definitely.
And they do the little dance for washing the car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have a little fun with that and such.
Sure.
Not very often, but I have played it, and I actually saw today someone in one of my upcoming weddings had requested it for this summer. So,
well, see now here, this is a perfect example. Everybody heard at the top of the show. John said, "I don't know anything about this. Brian's going to school me." He already played all this stuff. You just don't even know that's what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to. I'm just. It's one of those things you just do, and it's like, oh yeah.
I guess that is. Or it qualifies as. Or you can call it that. If someone says play some disco, these are songs you can play. You can totally get away with them at most any wedding in the U.S., I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a typical wedding in the U.S., I should say. Disco Inferno by the Tramps. There's another one.
Classic. Yep.
You play it. You've played it before.
Mm-hmm.
YMCA Village People. Boom. We know that one. Group Active. We're all doing it.
Exactly. Let's talk about that one for a second.
Sure.
Early night, midnight, middle of the event, later in the night. Where would you play that? Now, in the early days, I'll add, early days. This was probably my last half hour that it was in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you do it? Where would you use it today?
I don't know. I think it depends on my crowd. I mean, it's a group active song. I've done it early. I've done it late. I think it depends on who they are. I think if they're two cool people, when you kind of get the vibe they want to hear all the news stuff, you get that out of the way right away, and then toward the end of the night you can kind of get silly. Whereas if it's a group active audience, they're doing a lot of line dances, that's a good one to play early. So it just kind of depends on who your crowd is.
And I found with my family, the family events where I've got all the way little to older at these weddings, is that I've worked this in within the first half hour in many times. And just the response, because you were getting people out there and we're trying to basically, it used to be that we try to save some good songs for the end, is what the mentality was when I was teaching DJs. Right. I've gotten so far away from that. Now it's really going in there and hitting it hard, because now I've got, because of what we do in the dinner and we're getting the crowd prepared, they're ready to hit the dance floor. We get done with the special dances and the crowd is there, and I don't know if it's because we're building rapport, we're more confident in what we're doing or what the deal is, but it just changed so much. The crowd's there. So now we start hitting it hard and hitting with these songs, and the people are on the floor enjoying themselves. And many times I'm getting this story coming up and saying, wow, we've never seen this many people dancing at the beginning of a wedding, whether it's coming from. So yeah, it's just kind of, that's one of the weird songs that, again, when I taught my DJs, it was always, oh yes, you're going to be playing Moni Moni, AC/DC, You Shook Me All Night Long, and you're going to be playing YMCA in the last half hour. You got to just figure out how to
hold those tracks.
Yeah, to get those three in there at the end, but not anymore. So.
Well, I think we have more choices now, John. I think it's not like the old days where we only had so many songs available to us that were going to work. Now we have so many tracks. We can go so many different directions. We don't have to hold that stuff back anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of comedians, I've heard Louis C.K. talk about how his old thing used to be he'd save his best bit for last. I think I've talked about this before at other shows. So his funniest bit he'd save for last. And one day he said, you know what? I'm going to do it first. Do my best bit first. It's going to force me to up my game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think, what we do as DJs. If we play our best songs first, the stuff that we know is just like the video game Smart Bomb. You hit it, and of course everything's going to work out. I think it forces us to up our game at our gigs.
Very much so. Very much so. We get creative at the end, and as we're mixing different things in. So, okay, what do we have next?
Dancing Queen ABBA.
Oh yeah,
play it.
A classic that pretty much every event. Now let's talk about placement of that song.
Okay.
That particular, I've tried to use that in a middle of a set with okay results. I've almost found that works at the best at the beginning of a set.
You're right.
Okay.
I think you're right. Now that you mentioned it, I think you're right on that. Yeah. The best result.
Yeah, I just have never had a really great response from that, from like middle or an end of a set. And I don't know why.
It definitely launches the set off. And what I do with that track a lot is I'll do it after a slow song, or as I'm transitioning from one type of music into whatever. I'll play that. And, I know it's a great song. People like it, but I don't particularly think it's a fantastic tune. I think there are a lot better songs than that.
I would agree.
And I think it's easy to up that track.
Hmm.
It's very easy to play something better than Dancing Queen. So
And
yeah,
some of
it's
the,
kind of a downer at the end of a set, or even in the middle.
yeah,
Just to, it's kind of a slow song for a dance song when you think about it.
yeah, it is. It's a difficult song, but yet you've got the bride and the bridesmaids all want to sing along to it, and okay,
Right.
we'll go.
I usually follow it up with "Take a Chance on Me" because it's a better song
Yes, that's it.
and it's a little faster, and I can come out of that into a lot of things.
Now, would you, in this particular case, so let's say that's your intent is to go Dancing Queen into Take a Chance on Me. Would you play the whole Dancing Queen, or is there a point in time in that song where you basically go boom right into the other?
Typically, I just go ahead and play my tracks out. Now, the end of Dancing Queen's a fade out,
Yes.
so you're gonna do what they call like a radio mix out of that track into "Take a Chance on Me," and "Take a Chance on Me" is a cold start.
If you change
It's
your mind.
change your mind. Yeah, so
Yep.
you can pow right there. I just go ahead and slam it in. But I
Cool.
try to keep the volume relatively high so I don't wait for a deep fade out on Dancing Queen. But it's it's as it's winding down, you go ahead and throw it on. You
Mhm.
can play it over the fade out a little bit if you want to. So
Cool.
September, Earth, Wind and Fire. You play it, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay, well there you go.
that's a funk.
Yes. It's a poppy funky song.
It's a poppy, funky song that was one that wasn't on my radar, and we probably talked about this in the other show. That it just wasn't something, but now it's become kind of a staple.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
And great
It's a huge
song, wide age acknowledgement of that song. So definitely a solid song.
If you're playing September, are you playing Best of My Love by The Emotions as well?
No, I'm not.
You should, because that song's got a lot of legs.
Yeah.
And I think most people, everybody knows it. And it was produced by Earth, Wind, and Fire. And it's got the Earth, Wind, and Fire horns in it.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like we talked about Sheila Eve's Glamorous Life earlier. That's really a Prince song.
Yeah.
So Best of My Love by The Emotions is really a Earth, Wind, and Fire song. Remember Boogie Wonderland?
Oh yeah.
That was Earth, Wind, and Fire with The Emotions. So yeah, it was kind of their pet. Emotions were kind of their pet project there after a while. They did I think When Will I See You Again, and then they started doing other stuff after that with Earth, Wind and Fire, and the stuff got brighter and a lot more up tempo and funky. And Best of My Love is a really good example of that. But people know it, they like it, respond well to it.
Do
So
you
you even follow up September with this song.
There we go.
works very well.
That's what I was wondering how you did, which direction you went with it.
You could do that.
Mhm.
And that's a hard song to follow up. September is a very difficult song to follow up. But if they're writing really well in September and they want more of that same vibe, you can totally do this.
Yeah.
What's
I
weird
get-
about it is it's a slower BPM, but it still works for some weird reason. It's just got good energy. It's got a great intro too. Really
Yeah.
nice intro on that song.
Yeah, that it does.
Le Freak by Chic. Do you play that one?
Not often. I do know
Okay.
of it, but yeah, I haven't played that in a long time.
It works though. It does work. It's not my number one choice, and I don't know. I love the song, but it just doesn't seem to get the reaction that a lot of the other tunes do. But it's an A-list track, and people know it. If they want to hear it, they hear it and they like it. So if it's requested, I don't say no. It's not going to bomb, but I don't go to it particularly. How about "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough"? Michael Jackson. You play that one?
Oh yeah. Yep, that's one of my probably favorite early Michael Jackson songs to play.
It's a good one. Yeah, and it's a really long song. You can come out of that song. It's like a 6-minute and 30-second track, I think. I don't even know that we even play radio out of that track. It's got
Yeah.
a long intro. It's got a long B section. You can cut out in the middle of that track, and you still give them plenty of song.
So you mentioned long songs. Let's take a little pause right here and talk about. As I was doing some research and such, I was reading some disco purists that were talking about that really to play disco for events, and I'm sure they're talking more clubbish, that you really need to be playing more 12-inch singles of these songs than you are the radio edits of these songs. When they're talking 12-inch singles of these songs, Brian, what are they referring to?
Well, the 12-inch singles of these songs, they're like 13 minutes long, or 15, or as long as they can make them. Sometimes they're just incredibly long. And that's great if your audience is all coked up and at the disco. I think that's fine. But for mobile guys, we want to play the familiar stuff. We want to get in and out of tracks. It's a little different. I was telling John off air that before I left to Canada, I wanted to wash my truck. It was a nice day, but there was salt all over my truck, and I wanted to get it clean before I left. So it was early in the morning. I was up. I decided to go to my favorite car wash, which is probably about 10 miles away. The whole trip was about a half hour. I think I left at 6 on the dot, and I came home at 6:32. And the whole time I was on the road washing my car and driving back, I was listening to Studio 54 radio and listening to oh geez, what was the track? Santa Esmeralda's "Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood."
Mm-hmm.
So they had taken that 12-inch, however long it is, and they looped it at least twice, maybe 3 times. They used to do that. I think if you think about trance culture, where you want to hear the same beat, the same beat, the same beat, the same beat, and just dance to it, I think the disco culture was like that too. There was not all songs sounded the same. They all had a different vibe to them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to keep the same beat going for a while, you did that. And they used those 12 inches to make that happen, those extended tracks.
Yeah.
There were some cool nuances about them. I mean, back in those days, it wasn't like, oh, okay, we're going to remix this track. We're going to take the track you already recorded, and we're going to remix it, give it this long intro. We're going to give it this long B section and outro. They would literally re-record the track for the 12-inch. And they did that through the early 80s with music. So sometimes you actually do get a better version of the song on 12-inch.
Interesting.
Or a different version than you got on the radio.
So in some cases, would they add a verse to it, or would they just like...
Oh, they'd add verses. Yeah, of course they did. And they would add long intros. But they'd redo the entire song. It wasn't just, okay, well, add a little bit here, add a little bit there. No, let's re-record it. Like, you recorded the single, now let's do the extended version, and then they do it. And they would try to take what I call the candy, all the best of the best stuff, and put it into the single.
I got you.
Under 4 minutes long at that point, for the most part, with a few exceptions like Hotel California and things. Your singles were, longer than they were in the 50s and 60s, but under 4 minutes, 3.5 typically. So nothing we have to worry about as mobile guys.
Yeah, exactly. We're not playing 8. The longest song we're going to play is Meatloaf, and that's
right. If we played 15-minute long versions of all the songs that we play, we'd only play, I don't know, 4 times 6. I mean, we played 24 songs in a 6-hour period. That would be ridiculous. People get bored really fast. I think our audiences have pretty short attention spans.
Yeah.
But it's for the mix in, mix out point too. It's just like house music. They have those long intros and outros to mix in and out of, and to extend tracks if they want to. But
cool.
Yeah. It's just how they did it back then. But yeah, for our purposes, don't worry about it. Just do the familiar stuff. That's all we're going to do.
All right, what do we have next?
Get Down Tonight, KC and the Sunshine Band.
Oh, yeah.
You can totally get away with playing that song at most any gig. People know it. It's the familiar KC and the Sunshine Band song. We'll talk about more KC later. We Are Family, Sister Sledge.
Yeah.
There's another short song. 79, 80, right around there.
Works wonderfully.
Celebration, Kool and the Gang.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we all play that one. It's definitely a disco track. I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor. We've talked about that one before.
Yeah.
Where it's really a breakup song, but for some reason it's really popular at weddings, and we don't know why, but it is. Staying Alive, Bee Gees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Funky Town, Lips Incorporated. I blew through this list because everybody already knows this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm just trying to illustrate to you, John, that you do know this stuff. You just don't know that you know this stuff.
That's probably more appropriate. That's the way to describe it.
Let's move on to something a little more fun.
Mm-hmm.
We went through the basics, which are kind of boring. And I'm going to go into my list of tracks where, like, if someone said to you, we want to do a disco theme party, these are the kind of tracks you could play and totally get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
They are familiar, and they're going to get a relatively good reaction on your dance floor. If you like disco, you know these songs. If you were alive during disco, you probably heard most of these songs on the radio. If you didn't hear them on the radio, you've heard them somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard them. They're popular tracks. Guess how many of these songs I have on my list?
Probably, I'm thinking at least 20.
54.
Oh, jeez, you were busy this afternoon.
Yeah, but 54, Studio 54.
Yeah, but
I did that for a reason. I got 54 songs to share with you.
Yeah.
For a playlist for your disco theme party. I thought that would be kind of fun.
Fit disco
54 songs. And I do have some tracks that I'll share with you as well. They're a little deeper, maybe in some places, but you could use them if you want to, or just check them out, see what you
Yeah.
think. Progression.
Cool,
And
cool.
I'll jump in there once in a while and share those with you.
Yeah.
So we're going back. I don't know the dates on these all exactly, but I know the song's 1974. It was one of my first favorite songs that I remember saying, hey, that's one of my favorite songs. And that's Hughes Corporation, Rock the Boat. Now, this song was popular before the phrase disco was popular, but it still kind of qualifies. It's got the 4/4 time. It's got kind of the Latin beat to it.
Yeah.
It's a disco track, and your audience is going to think of this as a disco song. If you play this on a disco theme night, they're not going to look at you funny. They're going to say, "Oh yeah, cool, yeah, you get it."
Almost kind of has a Tony Orlando and Dawn type of a feel.
Bit,
A little bit. As
kind of that cha-cha feel.
Yeah, I kind of a little bit of that. I'm trying to remember back when I was hearing that was back when I was, at that time I would have been, so tall, and it was played. I would hear it when my uncles would be working. They were milking cows in Grandpa's barn, and they would change the station from the country station to the station that would play such music.
Really?
So, I guess it did exist out here. I just didn't get to hear it too often.
Well, even the guys milking cows knew it.
He did. He did.
You know this stuff. You just don't know you know this stuff.
Wow, that's really, you're pointing that out.
If I Can't Have You by Yvonne Elliman is my next one. That's on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Not my go-to track, but I mean, if you're trying to fill an evening with disco, this is a track you can put on and they know.
And they'll know. Yeah, there's the key is they know the hook from it.
That is the key. On this whole list, I'm not going to give you anything I feel like is obscure. For you young guys who don't know the genre, I'm giving you stuff here that people know. The people my age and older know. How's that sound? Let's Groove, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Another really good Earth, Wind, and Fire song. People know it. They heard it on the radio, and they'll dance to it.
Potentially one that could almost be pulled over into the more of the mainstream list, their regular use, because that one I have used at weddings on occasion in the right spot.
A lot of these you will have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these you will have. Here's one that, Chic is, I got a lot of Chic on my list because they did a lot of good tracks and people do know them.
Mm-hmm.
This first Chic track is Dance, Dance, Dance.
Yep.
Yep. You know that one? Yowza,
Yes.
Yowza, Yowza.
Mm-hmm.
It's an early Chic track, but it's a really good one. People know it. They will dance to it on the theme night. I have a story about this next one.
Mm-hmm.
This talking about how, depending on where you live, it really kind of depends on what's hot and what people are going to respond well to. In 2008, when we were first getting the whole YouTube thing started, Jonathan managed to come over to the States and spend a couple weeks with me.
Okay.
DJ Tutor. You guys know who that is. Most of you know who that is. And I had gigs lined up, and he was just going to go along, with me. I had a gig lined up for bus drivers, of all things. And they were, of all, the demographic was across the board. City bus drivers. So you have black people, white people, middle-aged, a little older, young people. It was all over the place. Dispatch, whatever. And disco was a hot thing for them. They really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Jonathan, I'm going to step away from it. You can go ahead and play. And I had a full dance floor. They're having a good time. And Jonathan gets on the microphone and said, "Are you ready for some real disco?" And they all screamed and said, "I can't hear you. Are you ready for some real disco?" And they screamed even louder. And he dropped this track, and everyone walked off the floor because no one knew it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. In England, in the UK, Wales, whatever, this is a hot track. It was it was staying alive in England.
Okay.
Here, it's a little more underground, but it's still a good track, and people know it who know disco, and it's Sylvester's "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real."
Oh, yeah.
So good track, and a lot of people may have heard it after the fact, but it's a staple. But yeah, it's not on A list. It's a B list track. It's, if you're doing a disco theme night, you can totally get away with playing some Sylvester. Bay Area guy. I've talked to people who actually knew him. I guess he was a really good guy.
And
But,
yet
yeah.
in Jonathan's, with his UK dance floor, go-to song.
Go-to song.
Intro.
Absolutely. And there are other artists like Boney M that aren't even on my radar
Yeah.
that are go-to songs for them.
Yeah.
So it's funny that way.
There's actually an artist I wanted to talk to you about in a future show. Is
Sure.
What's up with Boney M? Because I've heard
I
it.
don't know. You know,
It can't,
Boney M. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it.
oh well.
The British do their own thing. They really do. The
Yeah,
British are weird.
they have their own ideas and.
They have their own ideas about how things are, and most of the time, I like their ideas.
Mhm.
But to assume that we're gonna no Boney M was even our radar. I've listened to some Boney M, kind of corny, kind of silly, but yeah, it was hot over there.
Yeah.
It was what they did. Speaking of corny and silly, uh, well, we'll skip around a little bit here. Barry Manilow's Copacabana,
Yeah.
very much a cha-cha song kind of thing, but definitely qualifies as disco.
Yep,
Definitely.
it would. It made most of the disco lists that I was looking at today, and it's been one that I would put it as the 60-year-old females have, and then maybe now they're 70-year-old, but when it seemed that it was a strong song that the almost young grandmothers were really into that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I know it too. If I go to a party,
Oh yeah. But they were
it's
the
like,
ones
oh
who
yeah, okay, right on.
yeah, they'd
It
request
works.
it, and you'd play it, and it's like, wow, a lot of people know this one.
It's a funky ass song for Barry Manilow. It really is, no joke. It's a good song for dancing. Well, I can't think of any other Barry Manilow dance songs. This one, I
Yeah,
can't.
that, and then he's got some ballads that,
A lot of ballads, a lot of just kind of throwback tunes,
yeah.
things like that. This is his dance track.
Hmm.
So this is a funk track. This is by a band called Brick, and it's called Daz.
Yes.
Definitely funk, but you can play in your disco sets
Hmm.
because disco and funk's kind of interchangeable for your layman, and that's the whole point here. A lot of these are not disco, but you can still play. Cool track though. If kids, you don't know it, YouTube that one, check it out. That is a classic.
Yeah.
The next one is, yeah, kind of a funk track again, but you can qualify it as disco, and that's the SOS band. Take your time, do it right.
I don't know if I know that one.
I think you do. If you heard it, you go, "Oh yeah, that one."
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sing it for you.
I'll have to look it
But
up again. I'm
if
making.
you heard it, you'd know it. And
making-
that's what's
you know,
so cool about some of these tracks. A lot of people aren't thinking about these tracks. They haven't thought about them in years. But if they heard them, they go, "Oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool."
Yeah.
You got a lot of that in this list.
Oh, for sure.
Like I said, again, I'm not going obscure. You may not recall it by name, but if you heard it, you go, know that one.
Hmm.
Staple, you know it. Here's another one that you may not know. Now there are two versions of the song. There's an old school Motown version of the song by the Pointer Sisters. What happened was, there were more sisters in the Pointer Sisters at one point, but at one point they decided they didn't want to be on the Motown label anymore, so they split. But Bonnie Pointer stayed on Motown.
Okay.
The only sister who stayed. The other ones went somewhere else and went on to do their great things that they did. But Bonnie Pointer stayed, and she turned this Pointer Sisters song into a disco track, and that is Heaven Must Have Sent You by Bonnie Pointer. If you don't know that song, John, look it up and listen to it, and you'll go, "Oh yeah, I know that song." It's a really good one to play for people who like disco.
Hmm. I'll have to look at that one up. Yeah, I don't recall that one at all.
Surprise track.
Hmm.
You know this one, we've talked about it before. Leo Sayers, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing.
Yeah.
Not really disco, but it's a dance song.
Mhm.
You can definitely do your ballroom to it, or tango, or mom, or whatever you're doing. You can do it to this song.
Kind of fits in there with the Rubber Band Man song.
Yes, it was also on my list somewhere here.
Oh.
I think it's about 10 songs up. Rubber Band Man, The Spinners, 74. Again, yeah, exactly. Not really a disco song, but that one's more disco beat the 4/4 time than Leo Sayer is.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of almost similar, but a little bit different.
It got to give it up, Marvin Gaye. That's a funky tune.
Yeah, that I was gonna say a little more funky feel to it than the disco.
And we've heard it recently, haven't we, John? It's a sample that Robin Thicke used for Blurred Lines.
Oh yeah. There we go. I was gonna say I was trying to envision. Where did we hear
So
it? I was
the
thinking
young
last
people
week in
will say,
Vegas.
"Oh, it's Blurred
Blurred
Lines
Lines.
before Blurred Lines," and the older people will know it and say, "Oh yeah, it's Marvin Gaye."
Yeah. Marvin Gaye's family made money on that song. This second time around.
You can mix in, well, not his dad. it. You can mix and match out of it.
Mm-hmm.
His dad killed him. I'm sorry about that. Too soon? I'm sorry. Um, whatever. Let's see. Where are we here? Here's a fun one. Do you remember a song in the 80s? It was a one-hit wonder from 83, and it was a band called Oxo. And they had a
Ooh.
tune called Whirly Girl. Remember that song, Whirly
Oh yeah,
Girl?
Whirly Girl. Yeah.
Yeah, well, before Oxo was Oxo, they were a band called Foxy. And they had a 70s disco hit called Get Off. Do you remember
Yeah.
Get
Oh
Off?
yeah. Yeah.
That's the same band under a different name.
Interesting.
Isn't that cool? Just to know that. Thought you'd
Yeah.
not like to know that. The
I
useless information for you.
Interesting. Yeah. I would have never put the two together.
They were a band that were kind of like, back in those days, you had those dance bands that would tour. They were, I think, in Florida. They would tour up Miami. They would tour up and down the coast, Jersey, and then down.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a gig somewhere. I don't recall where it was. And one of the guys to hype the crowd, they would go ooh ooh ooh, and the crowd would go ooh ooh, and then the bar owner hated that. It just bugged him. And he says, "Look, if you guys do that again, I'm going to throw you out on your ass. Instruments and everything, I'm going to throw you out if you ever do that again." So he went home that night and he wrote "Get Off," which of course is full of ooh ooh ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And they did the song, and they threw the band down on their ass without pay. And they had to get a U-Haul and go home. And I think it was about 3 months later that song was charting on the top 10. A fun little story about that song for you. Gentleman's name is Ish. Ooh, Ish something or other. I can't remember. He's done a lot of things. He was the guy behind Company B's Fascinated and a couple other freestyle tracks. An interesting guy. But yeah, that was Foxy was his band. Oxo was his band. And Get Off is a fun disco track. And it's something that people forgot about. But if you play it, they're like, oh, yeah, cool. And they'll dance to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, story there for you.
Cool.
I know you are disappointed if I don't start going off on things like that.
Well, that's yeah, and that's again making my notes and
right.
and learning about these things. Again, I didn't know that.
Ain't No Stopping a Sound, McFadden and Whitehead.
Yep.
That's another one that people know. I've had requests for that one. And it's almost one of those songs that people want to hear at company parties. Like the boss wants to hear at a company party when things are going well.
Yeah,
You know,
I can
Ain't
see
No
that.
Stopping Us Now. Motivational song.
Yeah, I can see that. I haven't had it requested. I ran across it today, and as I was perusing through and listened to it for a little bit again, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that song.
I remember that one. Yeah, it's a good song.
I remember that song.
And people do ask for it. So familiar, good. This one's turned up in a lot of movies and TV in the last few years, I guess. And it's back on people's radar. More of a funk track and more closer to 80-ish, but definitely works in the set. And that's Brothers Johnson's Stomp.
Yes.
I think it turned up in a Jim Carrey movie.
I don't know where it did, but yep, I've gotten requests for that one. Not probably in the last year or so, but goodness, there was a period of time where that was it, and it's like, I don't want to play and mix this in with what we're doing right now.
Yeah, it kind of has to go by itself, but it holds pretty well. I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
And the next up, I have the two songs by Heatwave that I like to play. We talked about these before, I think, and that's Boogie Nights and The Groove Line, which is they're both fantastic songs if you got a disco theme night. Fantastic. And the Groove Line they can do the electric slide to, even if they don't know they can. You can tell them that they can. Hey guys, do the electric slide to this song, and they'll do it because that's what they used to do back in the day. And Boogie Nights is just a fun disco track.
Mm-hmm.
So those are only two Heatwave songs you need to know besides Always and Forever, which is a slow one.
It's your ballad, yeah.
Song. I've got I Want Your Love by Chic.
Mm-hmm.
Not the Chic song to play. We talked about that. It's probably La Freak.
Yeah.
But there's one you can play if you're doing a disco theme night.
Yep. And then again, it's got the recognizable hook in that one.
Mm-hmm. Got to Be Real, Cheryl Lynn. There's another one. It almost has the same intro as Emotion's Best of My Love. It's one of those songs where when I was younger, when I heard the intro, I wasn't sure which song I was about to hear.
Yeah.
Because they're similar.
Very similar.
But yeah, that's a good one. Here's one that's really big overseas, not so big here, but I think we're finally adopting it again, and that's "Blame It on the Boogie" by the Jacksons. Have you ever done that one?
Actually, that was a routine we did. We did that with and that was a la Todd Mitchum when he was teaching that back in the early 2000s. So we
Okay.
used the song for a version of the routine because there were some things Todd did with it that I didn't care to do with my youth events. So Blame It on the Boogie came into our playlist because of that. And it now has gotten to the point with some of these events where we've done it a few times. The kids are actually, they know the song. So now they're asking for the song to dance to, not the way we were leading them.
Sure.
So
That's huge in England. I mean, that's like Sylvester's "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real." I mean, you could do it here, but it's not. I mean, the Michael Jackson song you play is from those days. It's probably "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough."
Yeah.
But this one's huge everywhere else in the world. But the "Oh Yeah" song from the Jacksons, if you're doing a disco set, is probably "Shake Your Body Down to the Ground."
That one doesn't. I
That is hot. That is a hot track. It was hot when they did it, and wow, my favorite Jackson song by far is "Shake Your Body Down to the Ground."
I've got to listen to that one. That doesn't ring a bell for me.
Yeah, your crowd hears it, they're going to go, "Oh, I forgot about this song. It's fantastic. It's a very, very good one." So that's one you can check out.
Mm-hmm.
Shame, Evelyn Champagne King. Disco, everybody knows it.
Yep.
You play it. This is a little older. It's kind of fun. It's one of the first songs I can remember hearing kind of an electronic sequencer in. And that's George McRae's "Rock You Baby."
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool, groovy tune.
Yeah.
And right on for the disco stuff. So next up, I'm just blowing through these here. The Sound of Philadelphia, TSOP, which is also the theme song to Soul Train. Remember the theme song to Soul Train?
Yep.
The one that was on after American Bandstand that your parents said, "Turn that off."
Yeah, exactly. You can't watch that one.
You can't watch that one. That's not for you. Which happened in some of our homes.
Yeah, exactly. There's more reality and truth to that then.
Yeah, unfortunately. But anyway, that tune right there, which is by a band called MFSB. A lot of people think that stands for Mother Effin' Son of a B, but it does not. It stands for Mother, Father, Sister, Brother. Yes. And that is a tune that people know, the theme song to Soul Train. They've heard it. Even if their parents were telling them to turn the channel when it came on, they still heard it. So, good track to have. More. Andrea True Connection.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about that one last time, I believe.
Yep, the more.
Totally screwed up some childhood memories for you on that one, I believe.
I think you did.
Yeah. Here's one that, I forgot all about this song until I saw the movie Boogie Nights with Mark Wahlberg and Burt Reynolds and William H. Macy. And that breakthrough film from 22 years ago or whatever it was, which is just insane when you think about it. And that is Machine Gun by the Commodores. You know the song, John? It's an instrumental.
Okay.
And I love instrumentals. If I could throw an instrumental in there before dinner or when I'm just trying to hype a crowd or between dinner and dancing, I do it. And Machine Gun is one of those songs I like to play. It's a very short track. It's a funky track. It's got a lot of synth in it. It's got a lot of slap and bass in it. It's a hot track. So check that out.
I've got to check that one out. That's not one I'm familiar with.
Machine Gun
Mm-hmm.
by the Commodores. All right. How about Love Machine by the Miracles?
Yep, that one I know.
Okay, there you go. There's one you can play.
Mm-hmm.
And this one you definitely know. Shake Your Groove Thing, Peaches and Herb.
Yeah.
It's a very mainstream song. Everybody knows it. Like you say, I'm not hot on this, but you still know it. If you heard that, you go, "Oh yeah, that tune."
Yep. Yeah,
a great song for a disco theme night. It's not going to throw anybody.
And
out.
even to the point of needing a little bit of an additional disco song because you have a family at the wedding that's into it. Right. It can work at that event. 'Cause I have played it at weddings.
Now, when you're talking about the 12-inch version of that song, avoid it. It is so monotonous. I hear it once in a while.
Yeah. I was actually thinking that's one of those particular songs that it would be like, I want to get in, I want to verse, refrain, reverse, and I'm out.
Yeah, and yeah, that's exactly how you want to do that track. I'll make a confession here, and I don't even know her name, and I'm ashamed. I should know her name. But the lead singer of this track, who's also the bass player in the band, was my first crush. And I don't know where I even saw her. This was before music video. It must have been like the Midnight Special or something like that. But I saw this woman and I watched her sing. She had like the braided hair, not
Mm-hmm.
the dreads, but the braids. And I was in love with this chick. And that's whoever the bass player is from A Taste of Honey with Boogie Oogie Oogie. That chick is just, I don't know. There was something about her back then. I was melting.
Mm-hmm.
Donna Summer. I had jungle fever when I was a little kid, I guess.
Let's see. I just doing a
You're gonna
search.
find her name. Yeah.
We got
You can write her a
Hazel
letter and tell her that.
Payne, Janice Marie Johnson, Perry, is it Kibble? Guy, and Carlita Dorhen.
She was the bass player and lead
Yeah.
singer. Yeah, total babe. But Boogie Oogie Oogie, Taste of Honey, it's turned up in commercials and all
Yeah.
kinds
Oh,
of-
exactly. No, very familiar with the song.
people know it, so you can totally get away with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And Shadow Dancing Andy Gibb. Come on.
Really, almost as I was going through and looking, I bounced over to go do some searching for some of the Gibb family songs.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could almost just start and play. There's just so much that was obviously that era, but so much really. There was some good quality stuff that Andy had, and
Barry was the guy.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of practice, and they say that you'd use something over and over and over again, then you eventually become really good at it. Well, Barry had that opportunity from a teenager in the 60s to just keep growing and growing and growing on this thing that he was doing. And I didn't mention this in any of their shows, and the song isn't even on my list, but my God, like, how you listen to a tune now and there's like a hook?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's the hook, and I don't know, any song you can think of, like, I don't know, name a contemporary song, any contemporary song.
I'm just trying to think of some that have a really good hook. That
Just
was
a hook. Just give me a good hook.
trying to think of a modern one. Well,
how about Cupid Shuffle?
Cupid Shuffle has it, or even as we were
Round,
talking,
round, do your thing. It's in the chorus. That's the hook.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're looking at. We were talking about. Goodness gracious! I can't even think of it. The Marvin Gaye.
I got y'all flustered. Yeah, Blurred Lines.
Yep, exactly. Blurred Lines. Yeah, there's a hook in there.
There is a hook, and
there's just
probably a couple. But you listen to a song like Frankie Valli's "Grease,"
mm-hmm.
which, by the way, Barry Gibb wrote and produced. Dude, count the hooks in that song. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, literally, try it. Sit down, listen to that song with your headphones on, just when no one's paying attention, you got nothing else to do, and try to count the hooks. Dude, there's like 30 hooks in that song. I'm not even kidding you. If you really break it down to the stuff where you go, oh, like, ba, ba, da, 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 da. There's one. Then it goes into dun 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 dun. There's another one. Da, 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 da. I mean, right there, you got like 5 hooks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how did he do that? He put all those hooks on one song. Today in modern songwriting, they would say, dude, slow down.
Yeah.
We've got 5 albums worth of hooks right here.
Exactly. Spread them
out. And Barry would just throw them all on one tune. That's why they were so good. He was so hot in the late 70s. He came off of Saturday Night Fever. He just kept going and produced for everybody. And yeah, tracks like Shadow Dancing. I mean, there are multiple hooks in that song.
Yeah,
Cool
there
stuff.
definitely are good stuff in that.
For a music geek like me, I just love it.
Mm-hmm.
I give Barry credit where credit's due. Even the stuff he did with, God forbid, I even say good and Barbra Streisand in the same sentence, but he did good stuff for her. I liked it. It was really good. The sang, Guilty. I'm sorry, Guilty's a jam. You want to hear something really cool? I tell you what to do. If you care to do this, if you go on YouTube and you Google or YouTube search
Mm-hmm.
Guilty Olivia Newton-John. He did this song with Olivia Newton-John a few years ago, and she just killed it better than Babs ever did. It's really cool to hear him do a duet with her on that song. Is really good. It's a recent thing from the last 5-6 years or whatever, but it was pretty cool. It should have been a Olivia Newton-John song. It was good. Anyway, I'll move on with my list here. I'll shut up. More Village People in the Navy, and Macho Man.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, you're not going to play these songs just to play them, but if you're doing disco, you're going to play them and people know them, and they're kind of fun and they like them.
Oh yeah, yeah. And Macho Man, as a song, everyone will know it, but it's one of those things that it's like, okay, I only really want to play about this much of it because it gets old.
Yeah, well, it's got a real long bridge to it there towards the end, but it's not a bad tune.
Yeah.
Again, if you're doing a disco night, there's a good tune for you to throw on.
Yep.
So I think what I'm going to do right now is take a little break, and I'm going to buzz over and talk about some tracks that maybe are a little deeper than what I'm talking about here. Tracks that you really have to know what you're doing with, but they're good. I have a couple of those I want to share.
Yeah, let's talk about those.
And again, they're familiar tracks, but there are probably better choices. But if you know what you're doing and the crowd's wanting these tracks for you, go. Got some Donna Summer on this list of all things. And that first track is Heaven Knows by Donna Summer.
Okay.
It's a really good, solid track, but not the go-to Donna Summer track.
Yep, certainly wouldn't be, but I was actually listening to that one as I was cruising through some Donna Summers, because obviously that was a big time for her.
Yes.
As a musician and as a singer.
You know, she only wrote one song back in those days. And the song she wrote, she didn't even write it for herself. She wrote it for Rod Stewart. And he didn't want it. So she went ahead and did it herself. It's a real solid track. It wasn't one of her bigger hits, but it was huge in the discos. And that track is called Dim All the Lights by Donna Summer. It's a beautiful song. And if you got a crowd that is really into disco, you're going to impress them with this song. It starts off slow, kind of like On the Radio does, if you remember that, or MacArthur Park. She does that a lot. The songs will start as ballads. I think Enough is Enough. The song she did with Streisand started like that too. And then it explodes. But it's such a good track from 1979. Dim All the Lights, Donna Summer. This was one on the funk tip, but it totally works in with the disco sets. And if you've got the right crowd, or if you have an urban crowd, they're going to love it. And that's like You're the One for Me by D-Train. It's a very funky track. You know it?
I think I do.
It's a really good track.
Yeah, that one. Goodness gracious. If it's one, I got to check. Now I'm going to have to check.
Yeah. Well, it sounds more like an early 80s thing than it does a disco thing. But it works in disco sets. And I found that, you know, the urban crowd, or I would say, you know, older black crowd really enjoys that. They really like that. If you throw something like that on, it's a cool track. Good song. This one's weird too. Again, starts off nice and slow, but then it really takes off. And that's Come to Me by France Jolie. You know that one?
This one I know. Yes, I do.
Yeah. It's a great track. But boy, it starts off slow. But if you've got a real, like, if they really want to hear disco, this is a really good disco track. Not a go-to track, but it's a really good solo.
A deep cut that it will be something that people will give you that, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, real happy, fun energy song. Chase, Giorgio Moroder.
Ooh, and this one I don't know.
Ooh, that one is, well, Giorgio was the guy who did all the Donna Summer stuff. He produced all of it. And he also did like Berlin's Take My Breath Away in the 80s, the Top Gun soundtracks from the Kenny Loggins stuff. Then he went away for a while, but he recently came back and did a lot of that Daft Punk stuff off of the Random Access Memories album. And now he has an album already came out, I don't know, less than a year ago. I think it's called 74 is the New 18 or something like that. And he's doing some fantastic stuff. He did a Kylie Minogue track called Right Here, Right Now that's amazing. And got a lot of EDM play, or, you know, dance play on those stations. So he's still active.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the Chase or whatever, it's an instrumental track. and it sounds like every Donna Summer track you've ever heard, but it's instrumental. It's really good.
Cool.
But it's classic disco. He's the Greatest Dancer, Sister Sledge.
Ooh, that one I don't know.
Okay, see that one again a little deeper,
Mm-hmm.
but it turns up in movies. The last movie I saw it in, which I love the movie by the way. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you check it out. Is Roll Bounce with Bow Wow. It's probably about a 10, 12-year-old movie now, but it's an amazing film. I think it's got Nick Cannon in it too. An idea, but no, it's very well done. It's about roller skating in the late 70s, and it's just a hoot, just a hoot. But that tune did turn up in there, and I thought that was really cool that it did. And I've heard in other movies too. People know it, and it's classic. Nile Rodgers, Bernard Edwards from Chic. I mean, they produced that track.
Interesting. I'll have to listen to that one.
Speaking of Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, Everybody Dance by Chic. Everybody Dance, Clap Your Hands. A little deeper, but if you get the right crowd, I think it's a winner. On your radar at all?
I don't know. I'm trying to picture that. I don't know if that one is. I don't think that one is.
It's a really fun song. It's a very, very fun song. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite like disco-esque songs from the day. It's on my favorites list too, but I put it in this list because it's just that good. And if you got the right crowd, they're really going to appreciate it. It's one of those songs little kids like because they clap your hands. And people don't know it; they just clap their hands to it. It's a really nice song.
It's easy. It has the instructions built in. Nice.
It has the instructions built in. Yeah, slide to the left, slide to the right.
Let's take I got a couple of questions here.
Yes, sir.
Now, as I was going through, and I wanted to kind of look for different lists and such, and one list I ran across was what iTunes, if someone's looking for disco, it was their suggested essentials for the disco world, and there were a couple of artists in there that I wouldn't have imagined them being considered disco-esque artists.
Right.
One of them that was actually very high in that was Rod Stewart was in.
Do you think I'm sexy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't have really envisioned that as a disco song, but after seeing it on the list and then thinking about it, it's like, oh yeah, I see how the connection is made.
Well, everyone kind of jumped on that bandwagon. I mean, that sold records. So everyone did a disco song, and I'm trying to think. We talked about the Rolling Stones.
Yep, that was the other one that was on that list. That was a head scratcher for me.
Rolling Stones. Not really a disco song, more of a blues song, but it was funky enough where it got some play.
Yeah.
There was a 12-inch. I have the pink German 12-inch somewhere in the rack back here. No, it's cool. I got it when I was in Germany a few years ago.
Cool.
Let's see. ELO did it. ELO, you don't think of as disco.
No.
Shine a Little Love and Last Train to London. And the whole Discovery album is kind of disco-ish. Yeah, a lot of people jumped on the disco bandwagon. A lot of people did it.
Interesting.
So it was just a way to sell records. It's like anything else. Hey, here's the new sound. Let's adapt. Let's get on it. Let's try it, or contribute something. And that was the thing. You wanted airplay. Anything you had that was danceable was going to get airplay.
Yeah.
Where just 2-3 years later was completely the opposite. If you did something like that, they weren't going to play your music.
They were going to stay far away.
Fickle people.
Oh, funny.
Do you remember this track? It's by Bell and James. It's called "Living It Up Friday Night." Do you remember that track?
No.
You should look that track up. It's a really, if you heard it, you go, oh yeah, that track. They kind of capitalized on the whole Saturday Night Fever thing. Kind of like, hey, well, what about Friday? So "Living It Up Friday Night."
So you're saying this is an early rendition of Rebecca Black?
This is actually a very good song, which is why it's on my list. And most people have forgotten about it. But I guarantee you, John, when you hear this track, you're going to go, holy, I haven't heard this song since 1978.
Very possible.
Now, what's interesting about Bell and James is it's a good song, and there's a reason for that. I mean, these were not amateurs. Bell and James, Leroy Bell, I don't remember, it's like Chase James or something like that was the other guy. I don't, Casey or whatever, doesn't matter. James is irrelevant. But Leroy Bell's uncle was Thrum Bell from Gamble and Hoff, who did Philly International Records, and they wrote for everybody. and they hired Bell and James as a team in their, I don't know, mid-70s. Remember the song "Mama Can't Buy You Love" by Elton John?
Yeah.
Okay, they wrote that.
Okay.
They were the writers for that song. They wrote for the OJs. They wrote for Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote for a lot of people. And then finally they got to deal with A&M Records, and they did like a record or two. And Living It Up Friday Night is one of those records. So, yeah, it's again not very good song craftsman, and a really cool song. I can't believe they couldn't follow it up with anything.
Interesting.
But cool tune. One of those oh yeah songs
Mm-hmm.
that is cool to have in your arsenal if you've got a crowd that's you feel like goes a little deeper than, you know, Blondie's Hard Last, and you can throw this on and they'll go, oh wow, cool. Disco Nights, Rock Freak. Is it on your radar?
Yep.
A little deeper.
A little deeper, but
a little deeper. Dan Hartman's Instant Replay. How about that one?
No.
Do you know who Dan Hartman is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Instant Replay is quintessentially disco. I mean, this is a disco song through and through, no doubt about it. I think I talked about Dan Hartman in another show. He did a lot of things, and he passed away probably over 20 years ago.
He's known for, which song is his?
His big song?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on who you ask. I Can Dream About You was a song he did in the 80s for the movie Streets of Fire.
Right.
Okay, but the song that he wrote that most people don't know that he wrote and he sang on was Free Ride by Edgar Winter Group. That was his song, and he sang it for them.
Yeah, I see that. I just wanted to pull it up here. Yeah.
Yeah, Free Ride.
Free Ride is one of his, and it's only seven minutes long.
It's a great song. And that was, what, 71, 72, something
well,
like
it was
that?
used with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, so,
Oh,
I mean...
jeez. Well, no. That song was done in the early 70s.
I'm sure that was
the same album. It was on the album They Only Come Out at Night with Frankenstein on it. And I remember that because I had the A-track.
Nice.
And I was waiting for those two songs. And the A-track always clicked over at the part of Frankenstein where it kind of sounds like cicadas making noise. It clicked over in the middle of that. But then Free Ride, I didn't have any interruption on that one.
The A-track, the
A-track.
Memories of that.
Oh, let's see. And I think this is the last one on, let's see where. Yeah, last one on this list is A Lover's Holiday by a band called Change.
I've heard of that one.
Really, know that one. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Again, these are deep tracks. These are not tracks you just throw on. These are tracks that if your audience is a little more sophisticated, maybe you want to put them on. Or just as a music lover, maybe you want to check them out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that one, goodness gracious, I don't even remember where I heard that, where I played that.
You don't hear a lot. It's a really good song, though. It's a really nice song. Again, one of those oh yeah tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out where I left off here. I think I left off talking about the Village People.
Oh, we did something after Village People.
Yeah.
Well, we did the two songs from Village People. That might have been about it, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's probably about it. During the Beat Around, Vicky Sue Robinson. Did we talk about that one?
Nope, we haven't.
There's not much to say, but that's a track that people know and dance to.
Yeah.
Not my favorite track. I think the Gloria Estefan version is probably more fun.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah.
And there's just something about Gloria Estefan that just makes her music and such. Just, yeah, she gets the nod for most of
her and her husband are. I didn't really know much about them, but I saw an interview of both of them on Howard Stern.
Yep.
What cool people!
Exactly.
What cool.
If you've you hear the behind the scenes of them, it's just they're really good people and just kind of cool.
Yeah.
They're
the kind of people you want to live next door to.
That's about what I was going to say. Somebody you want to go hang out with and just
right.
Yeah.
Come on over. We're having burgers. Come on over. That's just nice. Not what I kind of perceived, I guess, of who they were, but no, they seem like wonderful people.
Yeah.
And they've helped a lot of people in the music business, a whole bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
But no, she does a really cool rendition of that. This is the sexiest thing I've ever heard Diana Ross do, by far, bar none. Sexy, and that's Love Hangover. I love this song. Love Hangover, Diana Ross.
Hmm.
Now this song starts real slow, and she's got this real seductive voice thing going, and then by the time they get what is the chorus, I guess, and end it, it's like the bridge. It's like boom, we're into this hot disco song, and a lot of hip hop people have sampled it. I know
Okay.
Heavy D and the Boys sampled it for something. Other people did too, but Hot Track. It's a really good one. People know it, and you can play it. Be careful how you play it.
Yeah,
Maybe
I've got to listen to that one. I don't think I've ever played it.
Love Hangover by
Yeah.
Diana Ross. You'll know it, and you'll go, "Oh wow!" And give it a minute because it starts out real slow.
Yep, there've
But
been a
once
few of
it
those.
kicks in, holy man, this is epic disco stuff. Very very good. Of course, Blondie's Heart of Glass. We talked about that last time.
Yep.
It's originally a reggae song, and we jumped on that bandwagon, just like all those other artists we talked about, and we made a big disco track. And it was our first big single as a band, so that happened a lot. See, Boogie Wonderland, Earth, Wind, and Fire was another real familiar
Oh,
one.
yeah.
That was Caddyshack, I think, was turned up in.
We have a DJ joining us from Brazil.
We do.
Yeah, so welcome.
Fantastic. Welcome, Brazilian DJ guy,
Yeah.
girl, who could be a girl. I have a Brazilian girl on Facebook who found me because of my Daft Punk sample videos. Every once in a while, she'll say hi.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you got any more sample videos? Like, kind of did those, but thanks. All over the world, man. Worldwide. Of course, Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm Sexy?
Yep.
Talked about that one. Don't Leave Me This Way, Thelma Houston.
Oh, that's that one. I like that track.
Again, starts out slow, but then
Mhm.
it kicks in.
Yeah.
And when it kicks in, Hang On.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these disco tracks are like that. The France Jolie track, this one, the Diana Ross track. Good Time, Chic. Now, this is one of my favorite Chic songs to play, If the Crowd Will Hang.
Yeah.
But I got to have a real special crowd for this song. I don't know why. I don't have to have a special crowd for Rapper's Delight, but for some reason for this song, I got to have a special crowd.
Mm-hmm. I could see that.
But it's cool. I prefer playing this over La Freak or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The Hustle, Van McCoy. Early track, 74, before the whole disco craze hit, but cool track.
Mm-hmm.
One to have.
For sure.
And then we have all the Casey and Sunshine Band songs. Just buy the greatest hits because you're going to need all these tracks.
Exactly. They can all be used somewhere.
Shake Your Booty, Boogie Shoes, I'm Your Boogie Man. That's the way I like it. And my favorite one, which we talked about in the 70s show, Keep It Coming Love.
Which was the one that I, at that time, was like, huh. What
Now,
is
did
that
you
one?
listen to it?
Yes, I did.
And what did you think?
It was good. I don't know if I'd put it as my favorite from KC, but it was definitely, it had a little bit different flavor, I guess is what I would say.
I think our favorites all kind of come from association sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So the next time that you're at a gig and I'm going to try it, you play it, and you've got like 5 hotties in front of you dancing to that song.
That's where I was going to go with that.
And then you're going to be like, you know what? I think I like this song more now. We like music by association sometimes. And that's
Exactly.
Not,
It's
your wife is lovely. I'm not, no offense. I'm just saying that's just how it works. Or maybe you just have a really good reaction.
Yeah, exactly. You get all of a sudden you play a song and you have a crowd dance floor of like,
right.
This is the awesomest song ever.
I like it. I like it now. I didn't know I like it, but now I know I like it. Let's see.
Which is kind of what September, how that works for me is
Yeah.
It really wasn't, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow.
Bam. September. Yeah, one of those tracks.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's see here. What do we got? Born to Be Alive, Patrick Hernandez. That's an interesting track.
That is.
It's a good song.
It is. I can't say I know it because it was on many of the disco 70s discs that were released there by the K-Tels of the world.
Uh-huh.
It was quite common on there, but I can't say I've ever played it at an event.
Right.
But
no, it's a cool track. It's something, again, that you save for your disco theme nights. It's not something you just play. You save, you hold that one, and you wait for the right opportunity to play it.
Yeah.
And then same thing with this one, another Donna Summer track, "I Feel Love."
Mm-hmm.
A very trancy Donna Summer track
Kind of a little
for your
almost psychedelic.
disco crowd.
Mm-hmm.
This one's a weird one. There's no other song like this one, and it's so campy that, I mean, if I have the opportunity to play it, I do it just because it's so campy. And that's Alicia Bridges, "I Love the Nightlife," disco round. I love that song. It's so bad it's good. And if you ever, there's a video to it, and she's got like really short, like platinum hair, like
Mm-hmm.
white hair almost, and she looks so pissed off. You know,
She's just mad at somebody.
she's mad. You know, it's you close your eyes, and she describes the song as women's music. I mean, take that for what it's worth. You know, I'm picturing, okay, Indigo Girls before Indigo Girls kind of thing.
Mm.
But yeah, whatever. It's still a fun song. It's a classic.
Oh yeah.
You know, whatever her attitude might be on it, or take might be on it, I still like the tune. It's fun to play. So yeah, I love the Nightlife disco round,
Mm-hmm.
which she was a DJ, and she claims that the disco round is what they called a 12-inch single.
Ah.
I don't know that anybody else ever said, yeah, they do. I've never heard anyone else refer to a 12-inch as a disco round, but apparently they did at her radio station in Georgia, wherever she was from. So let's see here. "Heaven Must Be Missing an Angel," Traveris.
Oh, that one I don't know.
Okay, well, that one turned up and really got on people's radar after the first Charlie's Angels movie came out, because
Ah.
Cameron Diaz is dancing around in her underwear to that song, like as she's dreaming about something, some man or something. That song really popped after that movie.
Gotcha.
It's a really nice song. Check it out, and it'll work
Mm-hmm.
and, for a disco set or for a disco night. "You Should Be Dancing" by the Bee Gees.
They've got to be there.
You got to be there, and that's, you know, "Staying Alive" is a Bee Gees go-to song.
Yeah.
It really is. It is. And if you're gonna play shadow dancing, if you're a guy like me, you just gotta look for an opportunity to play that one. Fine. A lot of the other ones you don't play unless you got that crowd.
Yep, you've got to have the people who are just really passionate about Bee Gees music, and they are out there. We've had
But-
that.
Yeah. "You Should Be Dancing" has a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This song has a lot of energy. So it's gonna be one of those songs you play at the top of something. Kind of like Disco Inferno. It's got that same kind of energy to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
The
very
one,
much.
the one that doesn't have quite that kind of energy, but it's good, and you can definitely play it as well, is "Night Fever" by the Bee Gees. And the guy who wanted to adapt the article, I think it was called, I forget, something about "Rituals of Saturday Night" or something like that. The Tribal Rights of Saturday Night, I think it was called. It was an article about just club life in the 70s. The guy decided to write a story based on the article, which became the movie Saturday Night Fever. He called Barry Gibb and he was like, you know, I'm writing this thing, this story based on this article, and I don't know what to call it. And Barry Gibb says, call it Night Fever. And he says, no, that sounds like herpes. I don't want to do that. Sounds like somebody got the clap or
Yeah.
sexually transmitted disease. Night fever. So they changed it to Saturday Night Fever. But Barry was inspired enough to write the song Night Fever based on that. So that's a little history there for you. Hot Stuff, Donna Summer. This is the other go-to Donna Summer song. If you've done Last Dance, Hot Stuff is the one you go to.
Mm-hmm.
People like it. People who, for some reason, rockers like this song. I don't know why they do, but it seems like people who would typically lean towards rock and roll can handle Hot Stuff. I don't know what it is about that song.
Yeah, I don't either.
The
connection wouldn't be.
I don't know, but they can tolerate it. It's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And this song is a remake of, I can't remember who did it originally, but it was, I think, in the late 60s. It didn't do much, but the disco version went crazy, and that's "Knock on Wood" by Amy Stewart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that is
And
a hot, hot, hot disco track.
and as we've talked, that must have been in a game or six because my children know that track,
Yes.
and they're not, they're younger elementary aged kids, and they know that
Yeah.
track.
There are a lot of disco songs where, if they're remakes, they completely change them or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't sound like they came from another time. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about Shocking Blue did Venus, and then I don't know, 16 years later, whatever Bananarama did Venus was
Yeah.
fucking Waterman. Didn't even sound like the same song. Didn't sound like a throwback to 1970.
Yeah, not a bit.
But this last song on my party list, and I'll go into some favorites after this. This is the last song on my party list. This sounded like a throwback song. When I first heard it, I looked at my sister and I said, "This sounds like a 60s Motown song." And I think the song came out in 78, which would have made me like 6 or 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that then. That's how big of a geek I am on this stuff. And she looked at me and she said, "How did you, yes, but how did you know?" And I said, "Well, I can hear it."
Mm-hmm.
And I still love the track. And it's right back where we started from by Maxine Nightingale. You're looking at me like you don't know that track.
Back where we started from.
You know that track. You know that. But it's got that dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
That's very mid-60s Motown.
Yeah, that is. That I wouldn't. And yeah, that I suppose that could be considered kind of a disco. But yeah, that was a great track.
Oh, that was a disco. That's a disco song. But it's got the strings in it. The strings are a dead giveaway for disco in the pop music.
Mm-hmm.
Da, 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 dead giveaway.
That's a great song.
A fantastic song.
I haven't played that one in, oh my goodness gracious. That's okay. For those of you watching, again, I'm taking notes on this. This is probably one of those songs I'm going to see if I can implement this into my sets at weddings and using it in the right spot. Even if I'm just catching a verse, chorus, verse type of a situation to get that hook in there, because it is such a that's a cool track.
I think it's a cool transitional track. Somebody could probably bring that song from 60s Motown into 70s music. That would be a great transitional track.
Yeah.
It feels like what's that track by Diana Ross? "Come See About Me." That's what it feels like to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it always kind of, when I first heard it, I was like, well, that sounds like the Supremes.
Yeah.
6-year-old in 1978 know who the Supremes were. I don't know, but he did. But I got it.
That child needed a comic book or two.
Yeah, well, I didn't get that. I just had radio.
Here, you have a radio. Go sit in your room and listen to this.
You have that radio for a while, kid. Give you cancer. So yeah, those are that's just a list for you. We'll post it in the comments section.
Good stuff.
If you're, somebody says, "Hey, can you do like a 70s disco thing for me?" There's a short list. You can, of course, add your own flavor to it. And I left a lot of songs out, but the songs in that list that I gave you, I think people are pretty familiar with.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're a relatively safe bet.
Mm-hmm.
And before I go on to this disco favorites list, which is a little odd, do you have anything you would like to throw out there?
Yeah, I'm just I've been looking and such and following along. I don't have any specifics that are favorite of mine. You've covered a few of them that were forgotten favorites of mine, but I really don't have anything that stands out and says, "Oh yes." Probably the only one that you haven't mentioned was Barry White.
Yeah.
And I've used you're the first, the last, my everything, that track.
I can't get enough of your love, babe.
Exactly. That's probably about the only one that as I've been talking and listening that hasn't been on your list so far.
He's not go-to for me. I
don't know if he's a go-to, but I mean, occasionally get someone coming up and saying, "Hey, can you play some Barry White?"
If they want it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so. And that request has come up way more than I would have ever imagined in my...
Yeah. Well, if I remember right, that was hot again because of, I don't know, Ally McBeal or something like that.
Could have been.
I think that turned up in that, so it got hot again.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. I don't dig Barry White. Oh, I mean, but I will say I love Unlimited Orchestra. I thought that was cool. And Love's Theme is a song that I almost thought about putting on the list, but I really wanted to keep it at 54 just to
Hmm.
be a dork. But that's a really good one too. You can play it. Love's Theme is something you can play in between. That's another one. Going from dinner to dancing kind of thing. You can play as an instrumental. It's a cool song.
Okay, so the comments here. Gary comments, Barry White is big go-to on the East Coast, and someone else replies, no, 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 don't take off those panties. That's why Barry White gets requested.
Right. That was Tom Jones with the panties, I thought.
Yeah, but
Maybe Barry too.
most
Yeah.
of that, especially when his getting
Gary
your
into taking off your panties. Put
his
over panties.
his slow song with or can't get enough of your love, baby, that kind of a thing where it was like,
No. I mean, I'm not hating on Barry White, but I mean, if someone asks for him, I play him, but I don't just go, oh yeah,
yep.
it's Barry White. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
do
I was like, oh yeah, I need to go to it. Yeah, he's certainly not
Right.
at that
It's
level,
not
but
that no, I don't play Barry White. No, it's not that. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just kind of like,
that should be a show. Is the songs that we just almost will not play without begging.
You gotta ask me or pay me to play him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have two categories. You have to ask, otherwise it won't, and then you have to pay, and then maybe there's a couple. Anyway, that's not
If you have to ask, you can't afford it. Yeah, something like that.
something like that.
I'd like to try to keep the shows positive.
Yeah, that's the night that we're just feeling that crappy. Yeah, tonight we're gonna go negative because we're just not feeling the love.
We're
Just
gonna
gonna
bring you down. Why not?
we're just gonna just ache on everything, man.
It'll be
Okay,
fun.
give us a couple personal favorites here, and we want to wrap things up in just a little bit.
That's an early show. That's really cool.
Yeah, we're at 9:30. So because that was one of the things that people were like, "Gosh, those shows are so long that it takes me like 4 sittings to get through." And it's like,
Trying to cut them down. a little
yeah,
bit.
dude, I know, but it's like
But
you
some
get.
people like it. They think it's cool that we go long.
Yeah, we just start talking about the different things, and I'm learning, and the crowd is learning, and we can ask questions, and it's really
It's all very organic for those of you who are watching. I mean, we don't rehearse this stuff. In fact, I refuse to share any lists with John before the show.
exactly. So that makes it at times that's why the dumb looks come. Huh?
Yeah, well, just to give you an idea, I'm going to do like 30 tracks of one thing and 10 of another, and I don't know, follow along.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I have 54.
I got 54. Here you go.
Okay. Okay, let's go to some favorites. What do you got for us?
This one, I think I talked about this in another show. Somebody turned me onto it last summer, and I don't have a good copy of it yet, but I'm still looking for one. And that's "Let Me Take You Dancing" by Bryan Adams. I think
Yeah.
it's a great
I
song.
listened to that one. I listened
You
to that
did?
one after that. I found it on YouTube, and I don't know if I would have really known it was a Bryan Adams track.
Had you heard it back in the
No,
stick?
no, I did not.
Really, you didn't hear it.
That
Okay,
was
so
that was
the first time you
the
heard
first time I heard it, and I'm listening to it, and I would have never put two and two together with that sound.
it. Isn't it a cute little song though?
It was interesting as I'm listening to it. It's like, where did you dig this up?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not even available to buy. I mean, it's so weird. I mean,
Yeah.
thinking about it, like,
Yeah, it's YouTube is about the only spot I think when I did the search for it, and that's what popped up.
yep, it's just not out there, but it's fun. Next one I have is "Keep on Dancing" by Gary's Gang. Now, if you heard that one, you'd remember it. It's
Yep.
got this really cool chorus and bridge that is something that you just don't forget. But
Mhm.
you probably haven't heard it since it came out.
Yeah.
Do you remember there was a song by George Michael, and what did he call that? It was called "Go to the City."
Ooh, I'm not sure. That one doesn't ring a bell for me.
What the hell did he call that song? "Go to the City." Probably about 10 years ago. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
"Move to the City." I think it's called "Move to the City." Or maybe it's called something completely different. I don't know. It doesn't matter. "Flawless Move to the City" is the name of the song. George Michael.
Mm.
It's a dance song. Anyway, it was sampled from a band called The Ones, who did a song called "Flawless," which I love, and I'll talk about that in another show someday.
Mm-hmm.
But The Ones sampled Gary's Gang's 12-inch single of "Keep on Dancing" for the loop that they made that groove for. They also sampled, I think, "Wordy Rapping Hood" by Tom Tom Club. But no, the song, forget about the 12-inch of Gary's Gang and all that crap. "Keep on Dancing" is a great song. It's a unique disco song, a bit like the "Living It Up" Friday Night thing, just a well-crafted tune. Very nice song. Check it out sometime.
Yeah.
The next tune I have here was originally a Pink Floyd song. Well, kind of. I mean, there's a couple of lines from a Pink Floyd song in it that repeated over and over again. It's from a Pink Floyd tribute album. I think it came out in like 79 or something like that. And incidentally, I have it here. I was on a crate dig in Vegas, and I happened to find a copy of Rosebuds Have a Cigar right here for 50 cents. And I love this song. Good tune. Rosebuds Have a Cigar. Nice song. Just because I recently grabbed it, I threw it on the favorites list to talk about it. Next up, I love this song. It's on a lot of the disco DJs' top lists of favorite disco songs, and it's definitely one of my favorite disco songs. And that is "I Love Music" by the OJs.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a great song. "Supernature" by Cerrone. That's a deep track. It's a cool track. A very cool track. "Supernature" by Cerrone. You got any favorite discos?
Not too much actually, because again, this wasn't an area that I really got into. Yeah, it was. You know, and as you've gone through, there's some songs that I had forgotten about that. It's like, oh yeah, that's a great tune, but yeah, of all the areas in which I would consider that this is probably my weakest area of mainstream things that we do at events, because I relied on the charts and different things, and it wasn't really called for around our area that much.
That's cool. No, I hear you. I mean, I'm the same with country. I don't sit around and romanticize about country songs. I don't like any country songs.
Yeah.
Think.
Tell us how you really feel about country there, Brian.
It's all work. No, I mean, I suppose there were a couple of crossover tunes I kind of dig, but yeah, as a genre, I'm not into it. I don't get it. I never aspired to settle down, get married, have babies, and go to church. It's just never what I wanted to do. So I never related to that stuff so much.
Yeah.
And I never really wanted to get drunk and beat people up in a bar.
Get drunk, beat people up in a bar, and then
wreck
your truck, and
I want to wreck my truck.
You go dance with your cousin at the neck with her in the back end of a pickup truck, and go down to the swimming hole and go buck naked strip swimming thing. None of that appeals.
I think I mentioned to you before that I lived in Oklahoma for 3.5 years.
Yeah, and that's what's surprising, is that you were there and it didn't rub off on you.
I did my time. I came off of Los Angeles from that place. That was not even fair, Mom and Dad. What the hell were you thinking? What were you thinking?
You go out one extreme to the other.
Don't ever do that crap again. Let's see, what do we got here? "Everybody Dance" by Chic. I talked about that one earlier. "Keep on Jumping" by Musique. Very nice song. Very, very, very cool tune. This one, I mentioned the artist in Canada during my seminar. Scott Favor was like, "Well, what are your favorite disco songs?" And I said, "Well, I really like Machine." And Scott Favor was like, "Oh my God, There Before the Grace of God, Go I." I'm like, "Yeah, that one. It's a great song. If you don't know it, check it out. It's interesting. It's like disco country. They're telling a story, about the family and what happens. It's kind of like Andrew Gould's Lonely Boy, but the Puerto Rican version. It's interesting. So good tune." And my all-time favorite, whenever I am traveling abroad and I'm coming into the United States, once I'm in the airport, the song's going through my head before I even get into the terminal. If I don't have it on my listening device, I YouTube it, listen to it, because I love this tune by a French guy, Patrick Chauvet, and the song is "I Love America" from 1978. It's my all-time favorite disco song.
I'll have to listen to that one. I think I vaguely that sounds familiar. Yeah,
that's a deep track. I don't know why I like it. I just really do. And you can play me the 10, 12-minute version of it, and that's fine. I like that one, or 13, or whatever it is. It's a good tune.
Cool.
But yeah, that's pretty much what I got here for my disco stuff.
Cool stuff.
We can actually end early.
Yeah, well, we had things wrapped up here, so we can come back. Coming up, we talked a little bit about a concept gang, and we would like to get your thoughts on this. We were talking about starting with the year 2000, because at Mobile Beat, I had people coming and saying, "Hey, are you going to do the early 2000s?" Because for some who have only been in the industry 5 years, that's beyond their experience. So Brian and I were talking about the idea of taking like the top 100, the Billboard top 100 for the year, and kind of going through and giving you a, what might work on your dance floor today, what did work on the dance floor at one time, what never worked on a dance floor, and then to throw in some of our, hey, this didn't make the charts, but this song came out in 2000 and it works on your dance floor today.
Right.
So I'd let you guys tell us if you like that idea. We're kind of bouncing around a couple of ideas. That one's in the lead right now for where we're going to go for the next few shows. So again, we'd be basically going through a year, starting at 2000, working our way forward, and giving you just a little idea of the music that came out in that year and how it would work or not work on your dance floor.
I think it's going to be fun to try. We'll do we'll call it the pilot for that series and see how it flies.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think 2000 is a good year. 2001's a better year. I mean, I was going through those Billboard charts and just kind of taking a look at what was going on and thinking about what was going on in other places and stuff that didn't make the charts. And I mean, there's some interesting stuff to talk about, I think, on this list.
Yeah, there is, and I think the part that's going to be the coolest, I think, Brian, as we were talking about that, is we're going to have our list, and there's probably going to be 25 to 30 songs really that we may go into any depth with from the year, but it's going to be tracks that were probably in the 100 to 200, where we're going to find some of those hidden gems that still are recurrent, we'll call it, and still making an appearance on our dance floors.
Well, what's interesting is the Hot 100 reflects single sales. And that's just across all genres. That's country, that's rock, that's rap, that's whatever. It's everything. And that has no real bearing on what's working on mobile DJ dance.
Exactly. So that's it.
Because people bought it and they liked it doesn't mean they're going to dance to it. So.
Yep. But then that also gives us the opportunity to discuss some of these songs that people bought and liked that they can be used in certain situations, such as kind of enhancing our dinner time music instead of putting in and playing. And that's one of the things I want to do in a future show is to go through and dig into helping put together a dinner set of music or a category of music or some different artists and things that people can pull from that would really give them a different flavor to that time, not putting really in a Kenny G. So I think this will kind of lead into that we're going to start to talk about more songs that weren't hot on the charts for one reason or the other, or I should say hot on our dance floor, but would lead into that. So cool. Yeah, we're getting some positive feedback on that idea, Brian, here. So thank you guys for being watching, and thank you guys for sharing and giving us some feedback, because sometimes, as we're bouncing our heads back and forth, it's like, will they like this idea? I mean, will they like us talking about 80s music? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I think the shows in the past have done pretty well, and I think it's fun to try new things, put different spins on it. I think it's a lot of fun when we kind of give our opinions on what's what.
Yeah,
might ruffle a few feathers, but there's nothing wrong with that once in a while. We don't mean anything by it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, I think
it'll be fun.
Just a couple of guys. I think we've mentioned this before. A couple of guys who love music, and sometimes from the Midwest. So our lists and thoughts aren't going to be East Coast, West Coast, and although sometimes they match up pretty closely. But yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff all the way around. Brian, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Next week we'll be back again. I think we're good for a couple of weeks here, so we'll be back then next week with the year 2000, gang, and we'll catch you then. Once again, thank you for watching. This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News. Brian Red. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.